Welcome to NoboCap, where we empower the medtech industry by enhancing the efficiency of notified bodies and market operators, unlocking regulations, and fostering health technology innovation across Europe. Our mission is to provide practical solutions and training that ensure the regulatory landscape is navigated with confidence and expertise. Starting in 2023, the specialized long courses delivered in collaboration with TU Dublin and UMFST help market operators understand EU MDR and EU IVDR, develop the skills to prepare technical documentation, and get devices to market. By the end of the project, a total number of 500 students will increase their regulatory knowledge and expertise by means of NoboCap's 3 accredited modules. The specialized short course for C-level executives offers practical training on effectively allocating time, budget, and other essential resources needed by market operators to prepare comprehensive dossiers for notified bodies. 3 sessions were successfully delivered in 2024 and 2025, and 1 more session is planned to be delivered until the end of the project. Another short course was developed to dive deeper into the complexity and specificities of AI-supported medical devices. 1 3-day on-site session was fully booked months before delivering in February 2025, and a second one is scheduled to take place during BEHEALTH event in Bucharest, Romania, in October 2025. On the NoboCap platform, market operators and notified bodies have dedicated interfaces to facilitate seamless information exchange tailored to their specific needs. Market operators can input comprehensive details about their organizations and the medical devices they wish to certify, while also receiving support in navigating regulatory requirements. Notified bodies, in turn, can gain deeper insights into the emerging innovation and market through access to extensive statistics and analytics, enabling them to accurately offer specialized capacity. The newly integrated matchmaking module enhances this process by facilitating to connect notified bodies whose scope aligns closely with the certification needs of market operators. Looking ahead, the platform aims to offer even more refined and specialized matching capabilities, taking into account the availability of notified bodies. The e-guided tool for notified bodies codes will facilitate startups to learn how the MDR IVDR applies to their technology. MDCG guidance and examples are integrated, and users will receive the NB codes characterizing their technology and the designated NB. The tool is accessible, and more in-depth e-guidance is under development and borderline cases addressed. The maze of the regulations is turned into digital runways. To facilitate the recruitment process for the notified bodies, a dedicated AI-powered job board has been developed. The AI module enhances the candidate search by matching CVs with appropriate profiles according to both hard and soft skills. Our secure AI chat service analyzes the CV and briefly interviews applicants about real-work situations to surface their soft skills and enrich their profile so that recruiters can see the human behind the resume and matching gets smarter. With NoboCap, we've introduced specialized training programs, developed a user-friendly e-tool to guide users through regulatory challenges, and enhanced matchmaking between market operators and notified bodies. We've also launched an AI-powered job board, connecting professionals to key roles in this evolving sector. But the true strength of NoboCap lies in its community. By bringing together innovators, regulators, and market operators, know-how and knowledge partner, and ensuring the provisions of backbone services and tools, we've created a united network where collaboration thrives. This community is paving the way for future advancements towards a medical technology innovation, enabling regulatory environment while supporting the industry's evolving needs.
For health objectives by strengthening notified bodies capacity and collaboration across Europe. We will explore the implication of MDR and IVDR for healthcare system, challenges in compliance and the role of innovation, from policy and regulation to digital transformation. Today with us, we have 9 panelists, so I like to invite the 6 which are in person here to join me on scene. Please, Miguel, Ines, Eve, Peter, Flaviana, please. Take a seat. Please, it doesn't matter. And I think it's also Bashak. Bashak. Please, Bashak. So we'll start with Mrs. Flaviana Rotaru, which is the president of ROHEALTH and the project manager of the NoboCap project. She will tell us more about building capacity for MDR IVDR implementation, lesson from the NoboCap project. Flaviana brings over 25 years of experience across the quadruple helix of innovation, connecting industry, academia, government, and civil society. From the very beginning of her career, she has been devoted to strengthening the Romanian healthcare system and supporting the transfer of knowledge from research and SMEs into practice. Her long-term dream, or the dream of the ROHEALTH members, is to see a notified body established in Romania. Today she will share insights from the NoboCap project and lessons learned in building capacity for MDR and IVDR implementation. Flaviana, the floor is yours.
No? Is it okay with the sound? No? This one? It's okay? It's better? Yeah? Okay, so NoboCap. It's easier for me to talk about NoboCap in numbers. It should be a presentation, but anyway, it's very easy. NoboCap is a project that actually emerged from user innovation. Why is that? Because we, as an entrepreneur, I started to develop medical software, and exactly when there were like 3 or 4 months before we ended the product, suddenly a regulatory framework is changed and software becomes a medical device. This moment actually put us back 3 years as a market development. Why? Because everything that we designed from the beginning seemed not to be in the proper place and with the right resources. If we add also the things related to AI Act, and now will come a Biotech Act, you realize that there are a lot of non-existing knowledge, at least in Romania there was. I discussed the issue also with other cluster members, because we are like 70 SMEs in the clusters, and surprise, I was the first one to know about the subject. Then I said, well, this cannot be only the problem of ROHEALTH members, and I discussed with several members in other clusters, and they said, yeah, it's a disaster what is going on, and it's very hard to actually know all the documentation needed in order to get CE mark on a medical device. And then my colleague Madalina, which she's very persuasive, said, we need a project to solve this, because we didn't have too much information, and it's a lot of information to go over. And she actually wrote an email to all notified bodies in Europe saying, we need a project and we want you to help us to learn, because it was a financing line under EU for Health program, saying, let's increase the capacity of notified bodies and market operators. So we had a need, a validated need. We managed to attract 2 notified bodies in our consortium, and we submitted a project together with 11 partners. Eve is one of them here, and we won the financing. And what we realized after 2.5 years of implementation, could you please put the next slide? First of all, we did education, 2 types. Long-term education, meaning courses, accredited courses, about how to build an MDR or IVDR file, with a lot of hands-on experience. And the people teaching us were actually the ones who were supposed to verify the files for the CE mark, so real experience. Then we had short courses. Short courses meaning courses for CEO level. Why? Because in a company, when you innovate, you can have the greatest idea. If you don't convince your manager that it's needed to put money on the regulatory, then it's hopeless. And also we had AI courses. One of them is still happening, starting tomorrow. We have AI for Health courses in the room next to us. It's a 3rd room, you don't know yet. And we managed to do also these short trainings. All this education created also a community, which now is led by Eve, my partner, our partner in this project also. And today, as we speak, there are still two modules running, long-term modules running as teaching with the University of Târgu Mureș, and at the end of this project will be also a master dedicated to regulatory in Târgu Mureș. So we thought a lot about impact. Could you jump to the next, please? Because that's why we have a lot of events, and we still have, because till March this project is still running. We had 2 summits, very successful. One of them was last week in Brussels, so it's a second meeting with some of you here. 2 pulse reports. In these reports, you actually see where this medical device market is going. But the most important is the community we created, where in this community you have clusters, you have market operators, you have policymakers, and of course the NoboCap partners. And this project, even if it will end in March, this community will continue to roll on. This panel is part of the project, but is adapted to the BEHEALTH event and will be part of the BEHEALTH event also in the next years, in order to be sure that all startups, or not necessarily any company that wants to innovate in health has all the tools to actually do it in a proper manner with all the info necessary. You can move forward, please. Next.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We can. These are the tools you can find in NoboCap environment. Before the session started, it was a movie. These tools actually help you to choose the perfect combination of knowledge for your product, because it's quite an experience to find out to whom you have to address what type of device you have. And for this, I know it was a movie will be again set.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So we'll let the movie talk. And next, please. We have this event where you know all about it, you registered. Please don't miss the last day. In the last day, you can meet a lot of, besides a part of the speakers here, for sure, you can set meetings with them, it's okay, they know it's happening this. You can also meet, we have 500 participants in this event because it's a 1-week event, online and offline, so set your meetings and find out about the regulatory, the things that you don't know yet, you'll find out. So I let you put the movie now, Madalina?
The movie already ran.
At the beginning? Yeah. Okay, so you can find a lot of the website. You can ask us a lot of things, but you'll find out a lot of new interesting stuff from the presentation discussion of our panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Flaviana. So I think through NoboCap we managed to strengthen the capacity and cooperation between notified bodies and market operators. And also we established a good relationship with DigiSante. So now I will give the floor to Mr. Mario Gabriele Cosuelo from European Commission. Mr. Mario Cosuelo, Principal Administrator and Legal and Policy Officer at DigiSante, will present us where we are standing now, in having in mind that now European Commission evaluates the 2 regulations where we are, and now we want to see what is the situation now. Mr. Consuelo, please. The floor is yours. Do you hear us? Hello? Do you hear us? Do you hear us? Okay. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Consuelo, please, the floor is yours. Do you want us to start the presentation or you want to share it?
Yes, many thanks. If you can,
Yes,
share the presentation from there, will be better for me. Thank you.
Please share the presentation.
So we don't have this presentation. So
yes, we have the presentation. Yeah, please share it. Sorry.
Okay, I can take advantage from short introduction. So, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mario Gabrielli, and working in the European Commission. in the unit, in the service dealing with the management of the EU legislation on medical devices and in vitro diagnostic medical devices. So very happy to be with you today, not in person unfortunately, but at least remotely, to participate in this panel, in this event, and the panel in particular about the impacts on healthcare systems of the medical devices regulations. I prepared a quite short presentation. We can go to the next slide.
Next slide.
Just to set the scene, so just to make the point where we are now, and then as a basis to introduce and to launch the more in-depth discussion. Just to mention that we are right now working according to 3 lines. First of all, we are continuing with the implementation of the 2 regulations and the respective follow-up according to the competence of the European Commission with respect to the national competent authorities and the sectoral stakeholders and all the actors inside and outside the European Union. At the same time, we are working in accelerating, improving this implementation by adopting some short-term actions, both legislative via some implementing acts and non-legislatives, mainly via expert panels or guidance documents and similar. These short-term actions are very much addressed in improving specific aspects of the regulations, as we will see in a moment. And then also the big thing going on right now is the evaluation, targeted evaluation and targeted revision of both regulations, which is taking most of our time, and in order to complete this exercise by the end of this year. So in less than 2 months already, because in principle we are going to present a proposal for the revision in the first half of December. Next slide, please. About the implementation, we can briefly, the previous one, implementation MDR IVDR, one ahead. Okay, this is the good one. So basically, about the implementation of the regulations, we are working on the application of the transitional provisions as extended recently. We are working on improving the capacity, the availability and capacity of notified bodies, which reached some good figures, even not the ideal one maybe, but already we have 51 for the MDR, 18 for the IVDR, and we are very close to a new designation, another designation for the IVDR as well. The aspect on the availability of harmonized standards, right today probably you have been aware that we have a new publication to raise the number of harmonized standards for the MDR to 36. Still we have 17 for the IVDR, the number is still limited, even if we have already some very important standards like the mention on quality management system, on risk management system, on symbols and so on. We are carrying out also the adoption and enforcement of a number of implementing and delegated acts for different aspects of the regulations. For example, among the most recent, we can mention the Master UDI, DI assignment solution for certain highly individualized devices, or the expert panels on orphan devices, and the mentioned short-term measures. We are going on continuing drafting and adopting guidance documents within the Medical Device Coordination Group, and also very important the development of the European Database on Medical Devices, EUDAMED, as we are in sight of the final technical and legal arrangement for the mandatory use of 4 modules in 26. At this respect, I would like to recall you that in December we will have the 3rd edition of specific workshops for Udamed, this time in Rome. It is possible to follow them in place or remotely, so we'll invite you to go to the Udamed website for subscribing and to participate. Next slide. The next slides are a couple of slides on the targeted revision. So the key point we are taking into account in this work, first of all, it's about simplification, trying to simplify the obligations, reducing administrative and technical burdens, especially on manufacturers, but also other economic operators. Very important, the point on improving the, let's say, the predictability and the cost efficiency activities of notified bodies. Because especially, of course, notified bodies, their intervention in conformity assessment procedure is compulsory for medium and high risk devices. Sometimes, or in many cases, manufacturers complain about the lack of predictability and, let's say, fairness of certain activities and certain fees. So we are trying to improve this point. And in particular, yes, to make conformity assessment requirements and procedures more proportionate, especially for SMEs, for very small companies, and especially also for specific types of devices, like, for example, orphan devices, breakthrough innovative devices, pediatric devices, in-house, etc. We have to take into account also the digitalization, the growing digitalization and the use of informatics technologies for medical devices, including artificial intelligence. In this sense, also we have to take into account the alignment, the borderline with other legislation, for example, again, artificial intelligence, but also the ongoing revision of the new legislative framework policy, and also to try to take the best advantage from international reference relevance like this. We are now working on the contribution to the call for evidence, a very large number received, so to take them into due account for the final steps in preparing the proposal. And in the final slide, just to give some dates, the idea, as I said, is to have the proposal by December 2025, December this year. If you can move to this slide.
Next slide.
The last one. Yeah. Yes, just again, by December 25, the proposal. Again, it's a targeted proposal, but rather ambitious, based on the results of the previous targeted evaluation and the wide consultation with member states and stakeholders, which will be also published as a two staff working documents on the results of the targeted evaluation and also on the cost-saving analysis. So I will stop here for the moment, but just to recall and to underline that the key points we are working with in the present, in the future, is about digitalization, simplification, with the consequent expected positive impacts, of course, on health systems and public health in the European Union and beyond. In this sense, we want the regulations not to be something burdensome, something obstaculizing innovation and availability of devices, but rather on the contrary, to improve their character of supporting innovation and availability of devices at the end for the positive outcome for healthcare systems and definitely for patients. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gabriele Conselu. Your presentation, it's very important for us because now we are seeing the outlook of the policy framework, what is happening at the European Commission level. And you said something very important, that want to simplify the conformity assessment process, which is a very good news for the manufacturers, having in mind that they encounter a lot of bottlenecks in this process of bringing medical devices on the market. Thank you very much for your presentation. Next, I will give the floor to our speaker, Başak Demiric. She will move now from the policy to practice. She will present us early planning and MDR in practice, lesson from clinical evaluation and quality system under the new regulatory reality. Başak is a highly experienced regulatory professional with over 20 years in medical device quality system, MDR transition, and clinical data evaluation. She is also an expert in ISO 13485 expert and served as a quality management representative at DESIA Clinical Research. She will share with us key lessons learned from implementing MDR requirements and clinical evaluation system in practice. Başak, your floor is yours. I hope it will work. Please take a microphone. Yeah, if not, we'll. Okay, perfect.
Hello everyone, my name is Başak, as Madalena mentioned. Thank you very much for having me here and ask me to speak in that respect. But it is a long presentation, by the way. It's my old presentation, last year's one.
Sorry, it's the one I received.
Really?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, sorry, then I have mine with me, sorry. Because it's nothing to do with the classification.
Let's wait for one moment. Things like that happens, you know, during organizational stuff, technical stuff. Sorry for that.
But I can continue.
Yes, please.
So I'm here to speak about the regulatory background and problems. It's my job. Usually quality managers and regulatory affairs are talking about problems, regulations and legislations a lot. But I may call it as challenges of MDR and IVDR. So I have been in medical device regulatory and quality business for the 27 years. And in my lifetime in the QA and RA, I have never read that much. I've never challenged that much. For the last 5 years, I spent a lot of time like reading, understanding, and trying to find out what's going on. So I'm here to represent 3 companies because I am involved in the operations of these 3 companies. I'm consulting to them, I'm a partner of them. One is the medical device CRO because they need to really be like challenged for the regulatory requirements. So normal CRO companies may not understand the regulatory requirements as the core, as of their core business. And the other company that I'm representing is Adviqual, is my company, QA and RA consultancy. And Neoreg is our baby company for testing, transportation testing basically, and some usability engineering. And I'm not here to like discuss the philosophy of IVDR and MDR in front of the European Union and you, of course. But for me, the most important part of the IVDR and MDR is transparency. So this transparency makes us a little bit afraid of what we are doing in the future and now, of course. And as I've said, predictable and sustainable regulatory framework. During the lunchtime, we discussed a lot if MDR and IVDR is fast enough or not. We will see, but what I usually think of when I speak to startups and newly begin companies, you need to consider everything when you're in the design phase. So it can be a little bit late if you start thinking technical file, regulatory requirements when you have the product in your hand. So the most challenging part of IVDR and MDR is manufacturers, especially startups, like think about regulations and legislations when it is a little bit late. So I highly emphasize that design part. I worked with an Italian designer for medical devices for a year, and he always told me that you are killing my creativity. That's true. I'm always saying to him that I'm not killing your creativity, I am regulating it. So this is what I think every startup should understand and do so. Sometimes we need to regulate creativity, sorry. And of course, you need to estimate your risk from the very beginning. This is the very challenging part of everything. So you need to really do a good risk estimation. You need to use all the tools in the medical device and IVD industry for doing the risk estimation. We have standards. This slide is from the standard. So you need to understand from the very first beginning that this risk estimation is very important. And it stopped working. Sorry, risk. And of course, the testing strategy. So while you're in the design phase, the challenging part of MDR and IVDR is to do the right testing. So you need to do the testing strategy from the very first beginning. This is the part that most of our clients face a lot of problems, because I can oversee now 15 different projects for 4 or 5 notified bodies at a time, and nearly all of them fails for the testing strategy. What is missing in the testing strategy is the sampling, good sampling. Most of the startups and companies decide the right tests, mostly, but because they want to save money, time, they do not really apply the sampling principles in a good way. And they do not try to find out the worst case scenarios and samplings and how do the samplings, how one representative, not of course one statistically sound sampling will turn to your technical file, your design in a good way. So this is one of the challenges that you may face while you are preparing for regulatory submissions. And process validations. Most of the startups and small companies that I work with thinks that process validations are for pharmaceutical companies, which is not true. In medical device and IVD industry, we are also, with the new MDR and IVDR, relying on process validations, because it's the way that you assure your process is functioning okay. So don't forget IQ, OQ, installation qualification, operational qualifications, and process qualifications. Of course, if you have processes in your facilities. And of course, this is the biggest problem, sufficient clinical data. This is a big challenge. What is sufficient clinical data? We may talk it for 4 or 5 days, and we may not end it up properly most of the time. But you need to find a way to discuss and describe the sufficient clinical data based on your indications, your target patient group, and your existing clinical data. You need to really do a good gap analysis. If you are having sufficient clinical data or not. So when I go through a notified body audits with my clients, when we pass this clinical data and everything, I say that, hey, we conclude 60% of the things that we're going through. So it's very important. It's very challenging, to be honest. And the most challenging part of it is to do the gap analysis. So you need to really be like good enough and discuss what is gaps, what is the clinical gaps that you need to fulfill. If you fulfill all the gaps, I'm sure that somebody would say you that there are more gaps, but because you think it beforehand, you have like supportive evidence that maybe you are not that bad. So I think this gap analysis and thinking about what I have as an existing data and what I need to like put on my clinical data is an important, challenging part of an MDR and IVDR. It's both the same for MDR and it's the same for IVDR. So you need to really think about the gaps for clinical application side of your devices. And of course, the other challenging part is the clinical investigation, or clinical trial or post-market clinical follow-up studies that you need to open. So you are now in an other level, an up level. If you need to conduct a clinical trial, then you need to be in the world of clinical trials. So this is also a challenging part. And of course, this is my area. For doing all of this, you need to really have a very good quality management system to guide you through the way, to make you understand what's going on in the MDR and IVDR environment. So please don't forget your quality management system, because it's the key that you survive in the coming changes, in the coming questions from the notified body or competent authority side. And of course, I don't mention it, the labelings and everything, it's challenging, but you may survive if you have a good quality management system. And the last part, I need to mention you about the post-market reporting. I am not going to mention that you need to report these and write a report as written in the MDCG guidelines and such, but for writing a report, you need to gather data. So first of all, for post-marketing reporting, you need to establish a system to gather the data. So then you need a quality management system to gather data. You need to have a good system to gather the data, to ask your clients, users about this data. And thank you. I look forward to discussing this further with you. You may email me anytime you have questions, of course. I don't want to always saying the bad things and problems and such, but there are challenges. But the key that I see for the challenging environment is to read and to implement as far as we can. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Başak. Please. Thank you, Başak. I think the main message from you is that early planning and strong quality system are critical for successful MDR transition and for putting on the market the devices. We now move to the notified body perspective. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Peter Bratka, Head Preclinical Evaluation Project Leadership Manager at Czech Metrology Institute, a designated notified body for medical devices. Peter has a PhD in biomedicine and extensive experience in biocompatibility, nanotechnology, and IE, as well as in conformity assessment. He will now present how notified bodies navigates under MDR and IVDR while supporting both innovation and patient safety. Peter, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you. Nice to meet you. My colleagues and also you in the auditorium. Always on the beginning, I would like to know who is listening to me. So please raise your hand, everybody who is producing or developing the medical device. Oh, not much. But I'm proud of each out of you because the MDR is not simple. And I hope that you will not give up. Okay, notified body. Maybe you will be surprised, but we are on the same boat as the medical devices producers because we assess their documentation, but we also have interest on the smooth and effective process of the conformity assessment. So, how to help the producers, how to help to make it. We identify the bottlenecks, yeah, of course. And I think that currently we see the two of them. Because we cannot make the advisory, I have no presentation, so I will just discuss with you my own opinions, yeah? Okay, the first one, bottleneck. Nothing will cure the lack of data in your submission. Yeah, your submission have to be according to requirements of the MDR. Yeah, no form can cure the content. Yeah, the missing content. So how to do it? Yeah. From the side of the notified body, we use so-called structured dialogue as much as we can. It's the way, however, as I mentioned, that we cannot advise to the producers. This is the way how we can communicate to you what we are expecting in your technical documentation and, of course, in the documentation of your quality management system. So we can, in a really early phase of your submission, before you submit your documentation to us, we can discuss what we are expecting in each part of it and what is sufficient and what is not sufficient for us. So I think it's really helpful. On your side, on the side of your colleagues, I think that the good practice is also really helpful. Yeah, you can use a lot of clusters, a lot of state-organized help programs for SMEs, yeah, and do it as much as you can, because the good practice is really the most effective way how to, you do not have to learn yourself how to do it first time. You have to use another experience of others who already have, for example, the certificate. So it's one thing, and especially if you are from the research area, I would like to point up that you should integrate in your team as early as possible a regulatory expected colleague. Yeah, because when the product is already developed, it's really late to start the technical file, yeah, or a design history file. It's really late. Yeah, so I think in Horizon project it's really changing. I see a lot of projects where the regulatory people are engaged, and I think it really helps. Yeah, because you know, it's natural. Yeah, the scientists would like to test as much as he can. Yeah, because for him the value is the knowledge, the new knowledge. Yeah, the sponsor, the producer wants to test nothing because it already works. Don't touch it. Yeah, and then come the regulatory man or regulatory woman and says, test what you want to do, what you want to test, play as much as you can, but you have to provide what the regulatory needs, yeah, to be provided. So I think that these three approaches have to be linked, and then you can win, then you can obtain the certificate, yeah. So this is one side, the data, and the second, or the content, and the second side is the form, yeah, of your submission. Currently, the AI is really often discussed. Yeah, for me as an assessor, and also of technical documentation, and of course as the assessor of research projects, and of course and also at the university as for the qualification works of students. On the first side, I see if the AI was used for the work or not, because it's longer. It's longer and it contains usually the ballast information. Yeah. So we are not now talking about software as medical device. We are just talking about AI used for for producing the technical documentation. Yeah, so it's like Office. You always are responsible for the data and for the quality you are providing to us. Yeah, so validate the tool itself. It's hard. I think, in my opinion, it's not possible to validate the public LLM. Or you have to validate the outputs. Yeah, so it cannot work. It can work with you, but it cannot work without you. Yeah, in the meaning of AI. So the digitalization, we as the notified body do as much as we can. We are engaged in some projects which are trying to make much more, as much as possible, the assessment, conformity assessment process. So hopefully we will be successful, and it will help to you, to producers, and in the end to the patient.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Peter. It's good to have with us a representative of notified body, because the notified bodies play a key role in ensuring both safety and timely market access for medical technologies. So thank you again for your intervention. Next, we give the floor to Ruth Beckers. She will present SME's perspective, how small and medium companies can build regulatory maturity under MDR. Ruth is online. Ruth Beckers is founder and CEO of Qualis, with extensive experience in regulatory affairs, quality system, and market access. Ruth has worked with startups on ISO 13485 implementation, product approvals, and has served as managing director of MedTech Flanders, supporting innovation and growth in the Belgian MedTech ecosystem. She will share a step-by-step guide to building a regulatory maturity. Ruth, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. If it's okay, Madalina, I will share the screen. I have the slides here with me.
Okay. Give her access to share the screen. Yeah.
So I think normally you should be able to see.
It's starting. Slideshow, please. Yes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, thank you for having me. I'm currently based in Belgium, so it was a bit difficult for me to come over, but very happy to collaborate also digitally to the conference. So I will maybe first start with a short introduction. So as already presented by Madalina, I'm the founder of Qualix. We are a service provider that provides advice on the quality, clinical, and regulatory affairs for organizations that want to bring innovative health tech solutions to the market. We are mainly supporting small or scale-up organizations, but we also work sometimes for universities and also for hospitals that are also now more and more bound by regulations, of course. You all know, and it has already also been explained by Peter and Başak before, the regulatory roadmap for medical devices is very long and extensive, and it can be a bumpy road. It's mainly driven by the MDR and the IVDR requirements that will need to be considered when you develop a medical device. As it was also explained by Başak, you need to do risk management, you need to have verification and validation data, you need to have clinical data. So it's a lot of things that you have to provide as a manufacturer. So it's very important to be aware about those requirements early on, so that you can prioritize things and that you can be well prepared to have the regulatory roadmap happen as smooth as possible. So from our experience, what do we see? We see that, well, it is a very good practice to start involving the quality and the regulatory support or IDs early on from the beginning. So first of all, the regulatory strategy is very important to start with. And it starts with really your product intended use. What is the intended purpose of your product? Looking at classification, because if you know the classification, you also know if you need a notified body or not. But it also is important that you start from the beginning defining your product claims. And related to that, of course, you also have to see what clinical data you will need to support those claims. In this early regulatory strategy phase, it's also good to consider a broader strategy of your product and your organization. So you will look at your commercial strategy, but also, maybe Yves will also elaborate more on that later on. It's good to start looking at your reimbursement strategy and try to map them all together because they influence each other. And therefore, it's very important to have a multidisciplinary approach from the beginning. So as I already said, it's also important to define early on your clinical evaluation strategy. Because if you have some specific claims that you will make, you might need to do a clinical study, or you might want to gather some clinical data in another method. But it's very important to look at it early on, because it will take time to gather clinical data. And then, you need to consider this in your timelines, of course. Another aspect that is very important from the beginning is that you start building also a quality management system strategy. So as we have seen also in the presentation by Jacques, you need to have a quality management system where you see also here on the right-hand side, a lot of processes you need to implement. But what we often see is that indeed there is a mismatch between starting early and starting too late. So it can be good to limit your scope of your quality system from the beginning and focus only, for example, on the design and development. As you are still developing your product, you can have some processes for those activities. And you can also start working already with a notified body. So you can ask the notified body to certify your quality system only for the design and development activities. And then in a later phase, when you go through the development and you gather all the data for your product, you can then also expand your scope of your quality system to production, distribution, etc. And then this brings me also to the fourth, but also very important starting point is that you should start selecting your notified body very early on in the process. So as I explained in the previous bullet point, you can start implementing your quality system and you can already ask your notified body to certify it. So that gives you already the opportunity to collaborate with your notified body to get to know them, and which will also allow you as an organization to grow. Right? You can best learn by doing. So in that sense, it's good to already also discuss this with your notified body. When you select a notified body, it's not only, I think, important to look at the price. There are some price differences, of course, between notified bodies. But I think most important is that you also look at a good fit from a personal perspective even. You can best plan a meeting with them, ask how they work and what fits best to your organization. And what is also important is that you continue communication with them. So they are not only the certifier of your product, but they are a very important supplier for you. So it's very important that you align with them also all the time, that you keep them informed along the way. And that brings me to the next slide, which I think is also a very good basis of success for this project, is that you have some project management skills and activities inside your organization. So define your strategy early on, then also define the different steps throughout the project, who is responsible, what. You can maybe also use some project management tools. But of course, it's a very important project, your MDR or your IVDR project. So it's very helpful if you can also manage it from a project management perspective. What can also help you is working with some different kind of resources, because you can of course not do this alone. I think it's very important also there from the beginning, start early to look at tools that can support you. You can have digital QMS tools, product lifecycle management tools. Peter has also mentioned AI to support you. Try to make your life easy, and rely on tools that can support your processes more effectively. It will also help you to avoid making errors, because you can use tools that have quality checks inherently embedded, so that you don't have to rely on human persons or like manual work to ensure your traceability, for example. You can also try to work with templates, and of course, when needed, it's always good to hire some external experience. Can it be via a testing lab or with quality regulatory consultants, reimbursement consultants? It's always it can always be helpful to ask them some advice, as they are really used to working with this type of topics. So whenever you try to apply those small principles that I have highlighted in this short presentation, we have seen some attention points. So what we also heard from the other presentations is that you have to consider it early on in your development process. Don't wait too long. Really try to look early at your regulatory strategy, but also your quality system strategy, your clinical strategy. You have to consider it very early on and align it, integrate it in your business. What is also important, if you can do it, it's not always possible, but try to work gradually. Yeah? So take a product, maybe limit the number of features, whereby you can maybe end up in a lower classification. And then later, when you are on the market, you can add some features which can then lead your product to be in a higher classification. You can do the same with your quality management system, of course. Then start also early on selecting your notified body, and don't look only at price, but also look at the service, the speed, maybe the good collaboration that you can have with them. And then, of course, try to have this regulatory and quality mindset inside your entire organization. Right? It cannot be only taken up by the quality regulatory person, but it should really be something that is embedded within the organization's philosophy, because everybody has to collaborate to achieve the regulatory roadmap. And then, of course, when you have your approval in Europe, maybe you can also try to focus first on the countries or the regions that also accept CE marking from Europe, so that you can have quicker market access in those countries. Voilà, this is what I wanted to share with you. I hope it was clear. If not, you can always contact me. And happy to answer questions also later on in the panel, of course.
I think the main message from Ruth is that early quality and regulatory integration and the strong notified body relationship ensure sustainable compliance and growth. Because already five of the speakers presented their views, I want to address a question for all of you. How MDR and IVDR implementation until now affected healthcare providers and the innovation capacity Who wants to answer to this question?
I can.
Please, Megan.
I can jump on here, because one of the things we were even discussing last week in Brussels is a bit the enforcement of certain things. So we are in a recognized transition period. When I say recognized, still a lot of the authorities consider that we are in transition period. So it means that we still see a lot of innovation that just goes without fully the MDR implementation, especially in the software where I work more. This is still something more challenging, but if you look to some kind of devices, especially biomaterials, implantables, class 3, is where we see probably the more impact, because our fields that are more recognized, that are medical device, properly regulated, and those are the ones that were more affected by the requirements. And a big difference that MDR introduces many biomaterials, and for instance, being from Portugal, we had a lot of companies developing biomaterials, bone replacements, and so on. So was a field for a lot of SMEs, so not just the big companies, they move from the from being able to sell to multiple indications to have to pick a specific indication in the market because it's the only one they could afford doing a clinical study at the level it requires. And because of that, we may see not necessarily innovation stopping fully, but innovation probably happening just for certain indications, and many indications not being properly addressed. So we are now discussing orphan medical devices, pediatrics as a shortage on the market. So different categories have different impacts. Depending on the level of enforcement, but the reality is that we see especially those with SMEs or even big companies selecting their indications based on the business model, impacting a bit on the reaching out to the market. So healthcare providers are feeling the lack of medical devices now, more and more.
Thank you, Miguel. Yves, please.
Yeah, to follow up on that one as well, and we also last week a view on this of how is this regulation impacting the innovation. There has been a quite extensive survey being done, which is one of the inputs that has been given, and it's quite clear because we did a sub-analysis for the micro and the small, so the startup, the scale-ups, and it's quite clear that they're suffering tremendously with regards to able to deal with this overwhelming regulation, with the consequence of actually stopping to have new innovation or postponing or actually seeking other regulatory pathways, going into other jurisdictions first. So it is quite obvious that there is quite extensive need for an increased preparedness and an increased support. And I think that's something what we have been aiming to do also with the NoboCap project, but also with the consultancy support. So I think it's quite obvious that there is a quite extensive challenge in order to address the regulation, and that it's critical to ensure appropriate investment, appropriate preparedness in order to still be successful to go through that one. So happy to afterwards share also that type of information, and I will come back to it also of what we're seeking to do in order to address that.
Thank you, Yves. Anyone else? Yeah.
Just from the practical point of view of notified body, for us the producer is the customer. Yes, so when the customers came to us and say that the MDR requirements are too challenging, and they are going to make the clinical trials in US and make the FDA first, it's confusing. Yeah, but we have to deal with it. I hope, personally, I hope it's just still it's just the reaction, the initial reaction, and as it was mentioned, yeah, we all have to adapt it. We have to adapt it in our early thinking about the new product development, and I think that there will be okay because it's all about the performance of the products, and we have to have the secured and performance products.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else?
Yes, if I can maybe add also to this, Madalena, I fully agree with what was said before, and I think what even makes it more difficult for innovators in Europe is that you have this unpredictability. You don't know when you submit the documentation, the technical documentation to notify body, you don't know when you will have the certification. And yeah, that is very difficult also to explain to investors because they need to foresee the money to bridge this regulatory valley of debt. And yeah, when you compare this to the FDA, for example, you know that if you submit a 510K, 90 days later, I think, you will have an answer. And this is something that is lacking now in Europe, and which makes it also very, very unpredictable.
Thank you, Ruth. Başak, please.
Maybe we are experiencing a lot of things with the MDR, but I'm really afraid of IVDR. Because these IVDR companies are usually self-declared their products and be on the market for a very long time, and they're not used to have these challenging regulations being applied, notified bodies, audits, and such. Compared to MDR companies are like some extent have these kind of stuff and audits. So I'm expecting more challenges in the IVDR side.
Yes, that's very true. And under IVDR, as Mr. Mario Gabriele Consuelo presented, there are only 18 notified bodies. So it is a really challenge for manufacturers to bring on the market IVDR products. Thank you for your interventions. Now we'll go to the next speaker, Mrs. Ines Urbano. She will present how research, how we can connect research and regulation, and how they can support innovation readiness under MDR and IVDR. It's very hard to translate research into compliant innovation and as Bashak mentioned, you said that your client says that you kill the creativity. So I'm very pleased now to introduce Mrs. Ines Urbano, Regulatory Affairs Consultant at Instituto Pedro Nunes from Portugal. Ines is a farm and quality engineering specialist with more than 10 years experience in the medical device industry. She has managed quality system sterilization processes and supports startups in integrating regulatory compliance early in development. She will explain how institutions like IPN help bridge research and regulation, guiding innovators toward MDR and IVDR readiness. Ines, the stage is yours.
Thank you. If I could please have the presentation.
Yeah.
And the clicker, that would be great also. Thank you. Obrigada. So, good afternoon, everyone. As Madalena said, I'm here on behalf of IPN, Instituto Pedro Nunes in Portugal, and I'll be talking about bridging research and regulation and supporting innovation readiness under the MDR and IVDR. And this is something that we have been discussing since lunch, the troubles that most innovators found. As we have been discussing, the innovation ecosystem in Europe is not very much aware of regulatory challenges, and usually when we meet them, they have this very interesting product and sometimes a very, very mature product, and they are starting to look into how to enter to market and to how to achieve the CE mark, and then they found this. They found the Everest. They found this big mountain that they have to climb. And this can cause serious delays, because if you don't consider your requirements early, as people have been talking over and over again, you may have to face several consequences, namely the redesigning your device. And this costs a lot of time and a lot of money, and sometimes can even kill companies. So it's, four people have talked about this today. I'm the fifth, so it's very important. Take this point today. So in summary, regulatory illiteracy really slows down innovation. And IPN and other companies, what we propose is that we act as your Sherpas, so that we can support you, help you along the way, guide you, and of course share the load. And this is where a regulatory strategy comes into place. As we have been discussing since lunch, if you consider these inputs early, if you talk to regulatory bodies early, if you talk to your competent authorities early, you consider all these requirements in your early stages of design, and then you don't have to redesign in the future, and you are better prepared to face the challenges. And this reduces time to market a lot. Not also this, but also strengthens your credibility, not only to your investors, but also for your startups, for your stakeholders, for the clinicians that work with you, because it shows you know what you're doing, and this brings value to your product. At IPN, we propose not only to focus on the regulatory support, but to tackle the issue on 4 different pillars: technical development, preclinical and clinical, regulatory compliance, and market access. By combining these 4 fields, we have a synergetic effect, and the path is much smooth and much fast forward. In the end, you will achieve the CE marking quicker. You are sure you have a device that is safe and effective, that is in compliance, and that it has the higher value. Another aspect that can help your device become easier accessing the market is the collaboration across regions. By connecting innovation hubs, hospitals, and SMEs across Europe, and by promoting and sharing learn, we achieve a faster market access. And by pool expertise and infrastructure to help early stage technologies to reach clinical adoption safety. IPN is part of 2 projects right now that support SMEs achieving this goal. And these are VR Health Champions and Testing and Experimentation Facilities, TEFs. The VR Health Champions is a 3-year project that accelerates XR healthcare adoption in less developed regions in Europe. At this point, there's an open call that is currently active. That's the opportunity for new SMEs to join and benefit from funding to support other SMEs with technical, clinical, regulatory, and market support within a regulatory European network dedicated to medtech innovation. So please access the QR code if you think this could be interesting for you. I'll leave this here just for a second. And next we're going to talk about TEF Health. TEF Health is for testing of AI and robotic-based technology in realistic healthcare settings. It provides technical validation, data governance, and regulatory guidance, and links research, clinical, and regulatory expertise. And I'll also leave this for a minute if you think it's also something that could be interesting to you. So, as a wrap-up, innovation readiness to market is accelerated with early integration of regulatory requirements, engage with regulatory agents, engage with your notified bodies early, take that input into your early design requirements, structured multi-domain support, clinical, technical, market, and regulatory. With one, your road to market will be, without one, your road to market will be more challenging, so focus also always on the 4, and collaboration across sectors and regions, like the ones that we have in VR Health Champions and TEFs. And for all of you innovators out there, I think that the key point to take today is engage early and find your Sherpas, find the people that will help you. The NoboCap project for me is a goldmine. You have so much information for free that it's so much important for your path. So engage early, find the people that will support you. There are a lot of interesting people here in this panel that are willing to help you guide the way. You don't have to do it alone. So that's the key point. Find your support and good luck with it all.
Thank you very much, Ines, for your presentation. Okay, we are a little bit late, so I will ask the last 3 panelists to keep the track, 7 minutes for each of you. But you said something very important. You presented us 2 projects, and both of them are very interesting because we have the possibility to use this. I think it's also, they are financed by European Union now. So I think this kind of projects can help us as market operators to test and validate AI laboratories. It's something very interesting, having in mind that a lot of software now has AI inside. I will give now the floor to Miguel. Miguel will present us AI, digital health, and the MDR evaluation, simplifying the regulatory lasagna through digital governance. Miguel, please. The floor is yours. You are very well known in this area. I know you are working for Complear. You are Chief Innovation Officer at Complear. But also you are an expert and mentor for digital health startups across Europe. So please present our lasagna.
Yeah, I'll skip the slides for the time.
Without slides.
But I wanted to bring you, so I think we had amazing perspectives about the implementation of MDR, what this entices, so I don't want to speak more about the MDR, because the reality is that the regulation in Europe is a more overarching kind of aspects. I'm an expert on AI and software as medical device, so I'll not be speaking about many of the other regulations that apply to hardware, especially those related with environmental, electronics, and so on. But I wanted to speak to you about another side of this regulatory lasagna. So there is already a food name for it in Brussels. Many people joke about it's more regulatory spaghetti many of the times. But this is this perspective of when you are developing a product, you don't have only a single regulation to consider, and that makes everything that's the Everest mountain that probably was presented here is just one of the mountains you need to come across. And this is really important when we are really shaping, and I'll speak more in detail in the software side, because there was a decision a few years ago from the European Commission of what is called this digital omnibus, of really bringing regulation into digital. So this is not only to do with medical devices. We see this with social media, with cybersecurity, with AI, and these are all aspects that really impact our life. And we are changing a lot of this paradigm of understanding that software can be and is what is considered a critical safety product. So first is a product, so many people have had a perspective of a software more something that you can do and it works, but not this perspective of let's make it as a product. And this has become a critical safety component. I remember, I think 2 months or 3 months ago in Portugal, we just had a blackout, and the first thought that we had, okay, it was the Russian attacking us with cyber attacks. That was like the first thing that was put together. And just to highlight, has cybersecurity being something that builds on top of the medical device regulation is a key aspect. We are now discussing aspects of AI Act. We are pioneers in Europe on really regulating AI. Many say that we are just killing innovation. That's a bit true on that, especially because we look it from, we put bureaucracy on things, it's not the regulation necessarily. And I'm saying this because when I go to the US, the discussion now is like we need an AI Act for the US because there was no centralized law, we end up having multiple rules in each country. And the reality is when we speak about regulation from the EU side, that is not necessarily the boogeyman, it's actually something that we should push for and fight the one that is creating in the countries. And we still have situations where we have a digital health application, we want to go to Germany or to the Netherlands, for instance, and we need to apply some additional rules that were defined locally. Does not mean that you cannot sell it in that country, but you cannot install in the hospital because the public healthcare systems added new regulations. I'm saying this because when we speak about these regulations, the more European level, and this was the initiative for European Commission to really create this, not a directive anymore, really a regulation to centralize as most and bring clarity as most of what needs to be done. And honestly, it helps a bit because at least you know what you need to enter Portugal regulatory-wise. Imagine a couple of years ago when I had to learn about Romania regulations or Portugal regulations. So bringing a bit this perspective of regulation is good. What I usually say, bureaucracy is the wrong thing. And when we speak about AI, when we speak a lot of this technology, the reality, we look to the regulations, and many of us that are more time in the market, we still look, oh, we need to produce this document, we still need to produce this PDF kind of file, but the reality, none of the regulations actually push for that. And one of the things that we are really passionate at Compliar, that we are really pushing with different initiatives, is the concept of digitalization of regulation and compliance. When I speak about digitalization, I'm not speaking about PDFs. it's not just moving a paper format to a digitalized format. It's really how we start communicating data and how we start building an ecosystem that relies on data as much as possible. And to finish this point of digitalization, the key advantage of digitalization, we were just end of September, we gathered a group of experts in Portugal for a retreat to discuss the use of AI in medical device compliance, so it's not AI, it's medical device itself. And a lot of the learnings there is that there was a huge potential for the learning and bringing a lot of this knowledge to the point we need. Because it's really hard to have these courses, learn about things, and then just go and do something. Many of the times is when we need that knowledge. And digitalization is also a way, and AI is a way not necessarily to do things for us, but bring the knowledge and help us to know what we do not know on when we need to know it. And this is a lot of this focus that we've been working, and I see the future of regulation not in the so dark. So that's why I painted in the beginning. We have even more regulations that is one, but the reality is that if you really embrace digitalization, we can move to a brighter side of not having to know everything at every time, but really working with the data and what we need to know when is needed.
Thank you, Miguel, for your intervention. We are a little bit late. I hope you can manage and take 5 minutes from the break because the discussion are very interesting. But now let's go to our next speaker, Liz Rezanglia. Ms. Liz Rezanglia is domain lead for MedTech and Digital Health at BEHEALTH, the health tech cluster in Flanders. Liz brings over 15 years of experience across healthcare and manufacturing, including leading teams in the US and Belgium. She now supports over 60 R&D companies through BEHEALTH MedTech ecosystem. Liz will share examples from the Flemish MedTech and digital health ecosystems, showing how collaboration and shared knowledge help companies stay compliant and innovative. Liz, the floor is yours.
Hello. I don't know what people are seeing right now yet.
Yes, now we are seeing. Yeah, we can see you and we can hear you.
Perfect. Yeah, so I don't have a presentation. I don't think that talking about your experiences requires that. But like as Madalena said, so I am leading the MedTech and digital health companies within our Flemish ecosystem. Flanders, for anyone who doesn't know, is in the northern part of Belgium. And actually, it's fantastic to be part of this panel because, for example, Ruth, who you already heard from, she works for Qualix. She's part of this ecosystem. So even when you're talking about, sharing examples, her company is one of those. So we have many of our young companies that have come to me and said, hey, who can I go to help understand and navigate the MDR and IVDR? And we'll point them in the direction of companies like Qualix. I think we've heard from a lot of speakers up to this point, and we see that every single one of them has a very critical role in unlocking these regulations for especially small and micro-sized companies. But there's not necessarily always someone that's bringing them all together as the glue. But thankfully in Flanders, and just like we have in Romania, there are cluster organizations like ROHEALTH and here BioVia that are doing this. We also bring companies together through different trainings, different projects as well. Again, Ruth's company has helped in supporting and providing trainings for C-level executives within the NobleCap project to help them understand what is the implication of MDR and IVDR on their companies. Because what you'll see sometimes is, you've got the scientist, the developer, who is then saying, I have this great idea, and then, but let me tell you, based on the input I've received, that, it's going to take X amount of time or X amount of resources. And sometimes the executives say, no, we kill that project. But of course, that's not our goal, like we've all talked about. We don't want to, impede or kill innovation. So it's just a matter of understanding. And like some of my other, colleagues on this panel have said, we are in a bit of a sticky point with this regulation, but I think, or with these regulations, I should say, but in general, that is how progress goes. It sometimes goes fast and then it slows down, it steps back, and then it moves forward. And the things I'm hearing from the European Commission that they're doing to help mitigate this and to work on this and improve the process sound to be very much in the right direction. But in the meantime, we have organized, like I said, different trainings to help kind of connect the right professionals within these companies that are needing extra support. We provide networks within Flanders to connect them. And in some instances, if, for example, the local ecosystem is not the right place to land or to roll out your product, we have supported and assisted in unlocking regulations and understanding other European markets and, if needed, other foreign markets as well. So, we do what we can. Like Magdalena said, I am not the expert. I have experienced and I've lived through this myself, but in general, the way that we work with our ecosystem is really just making sure that the right people are connected to the right parties at the right time. And I think that's really, in the end, the role of a cluster organization is, like I said, to be that glue, connecting people, supporting people. And then as part of the NoboCap project, we've also been able to extend beyond just kind of short trainings and ad hoc educational support to also offer these long course trainings, which are part of the project, also to supply different digital e-tools and things. We're also engaging in different European projects and calls, which help to further disseminate best practice and also tap into further digitalization of aspects of this, this process. So we're really doing all we can, all hands on deck to try to make things go smoother and better. We've also supported, whenever the window of feedback was open, to provide input on the experience of MDR to the Commission. We've also opened up the door for that into our companies and helped to disseminate opportunities for feedback there. And we're continuing also with the NoboCap community. We really are a firm believer that this is something special. It's really a multi-stakeholder group that can and hopefully will continue the good work that we've been doing to continue to unlock the regulations for those who really don't necessarily have a concentrated voice themselves. We're all in this together. We all have the same goal. And I think that's really where cluster organizations can come in to play a role to make sure everyone's voice is heard and kind of brought together in a nice, streamlined way and environment. So hopefully this sounds familiar to you, and I hope everyone in the room is part of their local cluster organization, because that's really where I think all of the puzzle pieces kind of start being put together in a more efficient way. So thank you very much to ROHEALTH for this, for inviting me to speak, and also for this conference and for the good work they're doing. They're also a champion in this process together with us, together with all of you. So
Thank
kind of the
Thank
story
you
I'm
very much.
sharing.
Thank you very much. That is true. The cluster, the role of the cluster is very important because we put together so many stakeholders and in this path to get the products on the market, we can help put the right people on the right place. Okay, now we go to our last speaker, Yves Verboven. Yves, the floor is yours. We are a little bit delayed, but please present your thoughts about unlocking.
Happy to do that. And so the topic what was given to me is moving from compliance to value. I was quite pleased to see that people started to also bring in the aspect, of course, of the market access. And I think it is indeed quite critical to realize that we need actually a full innovation pathway, and I want to come specifically on the area of innovation. And also some realization that, of course, from an EU perspective, EU, through the treaty of the functioning of the EU, is of course responsible for the population health aspects, and so the safety component, and also that the risks which are associated with the use, that the benefits are greatly outweighing those risks for the intended use, and so that's well covered, and there is a quite clear regulation on that aspect, and it was alluded of how this is further evolving. But then the question is also further, it needs to be, of course, up to the member states to ultimately value your technology, being able to willing to pay for that technology. And there also are mechanisms being put in place in order to assess this value, which is a health technology assessment. And member states work together to actually have an additional layer of regulation. So we get an extra layer there of a regulation as well to go through this whole full process. And within that, I think it's important to start realizing also that resources are limited, and so that ultimately, if innovation is being done, it needs to be innovation which is ultimately of value. Of value within the context of our health systems, which are addressing more the equality, universal access components. So it's really need to be in line of what the values are from our society, but also what is actually valued by the different actors, so that ultimately your proposition is something which is accepting to get then actually a type of financing of reimbursement. So after I've gone through all that process, it will be important not to forget that ultimately you need this extra step in order to make sure that there is a financing, and that's why we would be actually very keen on further focusing on innovation, which is ultimately of value, and have that as a starting point, and then see actually how can we actually have specific provisions within the regulations, which actually will enable a specific focus on that specific group of innovation, and how can we support in Europe to have a dedicated pathways for this. We have pathways in the US, you have pathways in Japan, in other jurisdictions, which actually put a focus on this. I think it's very critical that we actually put an extra focus on that area and make the supportive of initiatives. And there I think from an EU side and also from an EU for Health side, initiatives can be taken. I think the first step is that you need to have provisions in the regulation. The second step is you need to have member states that are willing to support this. There is now in the regulation a work ongoing on a breakthrough medical devices innovation pathway. Only few member states are actually working in this task force. So there seems to be only from a few a commitment to really see is there something we can do in order to support innovation which is of value to bring through the system. So I think that's the first step that's needed. A second step that's needed is then the implementation of this regulation. Again, how can be in cooperation and with the startups, with the scale-ups, how can it be looked that it is actually fit for purpose, that it's going to be workable in order to have this regulation. Again, I think it's important from a community perspective, having the startups, we call them now the MSEs, so the micro, the small companies, that they are in dialogue with also the policy makers in order to see how do we go and do this further implementation of this regulation. I'm very pleased to see the red bar, which was actually short-term legislative and non-legislative measures. And then the third one is ultimately work that needs to be done in order for all the startups and the scale-ups and the innovators to be able to actually have the ability to implement it, because it's so overwhelming. The question is, okay, do I have time to just look at these special pathways, and do I can have this sufficient support? Can I get into a dialogue? Can I get into specific provisions? So again, that and there, I think the innovation hubs and clusters do indeed play a critical role in order to provide that support. When we built the community, we saw that 50% of the clusters that actually signed up actually had some programs. 50% did that not any regulatory program. So there is certainly quite a great room. And I think there, as indicated, like ROHEALTH is taking a lead in this, BEHEALTH is taking a lead in this. So it's really critical to have this ability to have this continued and have this actually further worked out. Now, if we look at the provisions in the different regulations, but you have to actually look at the different regulations there, you have provisions there. You have a certification with provision. You have a structured dialogue ability. You have an ability of a scientific advice with expert panels, which are overseen by EMA. You have actually, towards the HTA, you have an ability to have a joint consultation also with the countries. So there are all these different elements which are there, only they're not connected, they're completely disconnected. So again, work will be critical in order to see how we use the provisions in order to get actually a streamlined pathway, and in that way actually support the innovation which is of value, so that they ultimately reach our health systems and are being uptaken in our health systems. At this moment, we're lost in row. So we see a great development from the innovation in Europe, but then they start moving towards US, towards Japan, towards other jurisdictions, and only years afterwards, they actually start reaching our health system. We have to change this, and I think the starting point is that we look at what are specific pathways, how we can support our innovators to get through that pathway, and what are all the different initiatives to take. And like this conference, I think, provides an excellent opportunity to get really an understanding of what's around and how to actually get through the system.
Thank you, Yves. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our speakers for this valuable contribution. As I mentioned, we are a little bit late, but now I want to ask you if you have some questions for our speakers, please address them. There are questions from the room. If not, I will ask each speaker to briefly answer to the following question. If you could change one thing in the MDR-IVDR framework by 2027, what would be one thing?
27 or 26?
27. One thing.
So we don't lose time. Honestly, we need more regulatory science applied to the MDR. But I say this is more capability to issue standards, specifications, guidance. So being able to really produce that as a more central level, of course relying on the distributed knowledge, but we being more a powerhouse of guidance and knowledge and how we do regulatory, because that's what's called regulatory science. It's easy to put the law, it's hard to deliver on the capacity to achieve that. So, and that for that we need, in many cases, regulatory science that we don't have.
Ines?
I would say Rule 11. We were discussing this earlier. It really needs to be addressed. It's unfair. And we see companies that have very low risk devices that have to take this huge burden of a class 2A because of this unfair rule. So that would be the very specific point that I would change.
Okay.
Despite that we have a call that's actually paying for regulatory in our products. It's open till 17 of November. It's a call for putting in the market some or any medical device. So we have such a call. We managed to have eligible expenses on regulatory in the next research health calls. I would say that I will discuss a little bit about the costs in time and resources just to put something in the market. And if I'm coming back to the Nobel Prize for Economy that we discussed in the morning, it's one of the winners said that if Europe will not invest in innovation, we'll actually buy everything from the United States. And this is something very true in the regulatory market now. Hopefully, and if I would remove something, I would remove software as a medical device, if you want to know. This is the first thing that I would remove from the list, because actually the medical decision stays on the doctor, not on the software, if we want to be fair.
Okay. You, Yves, please.
Well, I think by 27 we should have 20 technologies which went to the breakthrough innovation pathway, having both the standard ones, the more digital AI ones, and then the combination ones. So I think it's manageable if we just put our shoulders under it. So by 27, 20 that went breakthroughs that we have then accessible to our health systems.
Okay, Peter.
Important things was already said, so maybe just from the another point of view, I think that we need more regulation. But just in one really narrow meaning, it's nice idea that there is no binding structure of technical documentation. Yeah, and I think that little bit more regulation in this area would help, because the requirements would be more clear. No non-binding MDCG document will be required. For example, GSPR checklist is written in the MDR directly. Yeah, so let's find out the another essential parts of technical documentation as risk analysis and so on, and just say it directly. What are the requirements, and no discussions about it. Yeah.
So standardization of the technical documentation.
Standardization is better than regulation.
Okay. Standardization. Okay. I will give you the floor, but please, Başak.
Then I will add more calibration on the notified body side for the auditors and such. So we are experiencing many notified bodies and their approaches. So we all know that they are not all following the same MDR or IVDR. So they are following different things. So that's what we are usually experiencing. I think more calibration is required.
Okay, we have a question from the room, please.
So, I want Béla Bihari from Ignosis, Romanian SME in manufacturing software as a medical device and experiencing prototypes. So, I'm in a very lucky position because we had a lengthy discussion with you, and congratulations. Most of my concerns were already answered. But first of all, I see experts, regulators, and this is very nice, and congratulations again. I would encouraged to see practical use cases and examples, best practice examples from the other side, from manufacturers who went through on this lengthy process. For example, in the upcoming, as I said, in the upcoming two and a half years, we plan to certify a software as a medical device, and the complete context is a little bit blurry for me, and I would be more than happy to see a real-life proven example from where it starts and where it ends, and what are the cost, resources, and how can we get there. So that would be my recommendation, and congrats again, it's a very useful panel.
Fabiana, please.
I would like to add that after your employees finish Module 1 and 3 courses in NoboCap, your level of knowledge, because they are in the NoboCap courses now, I know for sure, your level of knowledge will raise a lot. And for all the other questions, feel free to ask, because you are part of the NoboCap environment, so you can access any tools, any knowledge, still till February for free.
Thank you. Okay, there are other questions from the audience? If there are not other questions, I think we can wrap up here. But I want to thank again to all of you for your interventions, and I hope the audience the audience online and physical, they learned a lot from you, and what are the expectations for the next few years. Thank you again for your participation. Okay.